Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei become a pure angel? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Hello, Issei said to the class, my name is Issei Dawn, and I am 16 years old. My parents have lived here in Japan for a while, but I was in the Americas for the past 15 years. Thank you, Issei. The teacher said next to him at her podium, we are happy to have you in our class. Let's see she began looking around the room. Why don't you sit over there with Mitsuda and Motohama? Issei looked in the direction his teacher was pointing to. There was a single empty desk towards the back of the class next to the windows. To the right of what would be his desk were two boys. One had very short, almost no hair on his head. His ears were round like a monkey's, and his face was round. The other that sat behind him was tall and thin. Black hair that was long enough to form bangs over his eyes and around his head. He had on glasses. Yes ma'am. Issei said as he walked through the desk and sat in his seat. It wasn't long before the one with the super short hair spoke up and said, yo what's up dude. The name is Mitsuda. First year and babe magnet extraordinary at your service. Issei out of courtesy took the guy's outstretched hand and shook it. The other one behind him spoke next. Pleasure to meet you Issei. Motohama's teach said. First year and a female physic connoisseur. You ever wanna know what a chick is packing underneath any kind of clothing or fabric, all you gotta do is point 'em out and let me work my magic. Issei also shook his hand. Have you seen the new Lady Malika video? Motohama asked. No. Issei responded. Oh man. Mitsuda said bowling his fist and closing his eyes to make him seem as though he were in a dream state. The honkers on Malika are enough to turn any man into a horndog. Just imagine the gentle skin atop that warm blood and don't even think about forgetting the he droned on. Great, Issei thought, the first people I meet at this school are perverts. On the trampoline with just a bikini on for coverage. The imagination was hardly needed to see straight through the fine purple swimsuit. I'd give anything just to motorboat them. Issei decided to just nod and tune them out for the rest of the class. You guys really have nothing better to do than to just talk about breast. He thought. From this one interaction, Issei wanted to just keep away from them for the rest of his life. Shallow and perverted humans. The bell rung an hour and a few minutes later signaling everyone that they were permitted to get up and go to lunch. Come on Issei. Mitsuda said putting an arm around his shoulder and leading him out of the classroom, you can come eat with us. We've got the best seats in the whole school. The physical contact spiked Issei's instincts and it was faster than the eyes could see that Mitsuda had his face morphed into an expression full of pain. Issei had the guy's arm twisted behind his back and his hand bent painfully. Ow 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 ow. He yelled in pain. People looked at the pair and were slightly shocked at the sight. Issei only realized what he was doing after a few seconds. He looked at his hands and immediately let go of Mitsuda. He hadn't meant to react in such a way. He wasn't good with physical contact that he didn't see someone initiate and his body reacted on its own. Holy shit. You okay dude? Motohama asked. Damn man. You nearly broke my arm dude. Mitsuda said holding his arm and looking at Issei. Sorry. Issei said, it was just a reflex. I didn't mean to do that. Issei looked slightly embarrassed. He just assaulted a human who by their standards and even angels tried to show him friendly companionship. He extended a hand down to the boy and when Mitsuda took it, pulled him up in one go. Geez, he said rubbing his wrist, remind me never to put my hand on your shoulder again. Sorry Issei said noticing the onlookers were beginning to leave the classroom. Don't sweat it bro. Just promise me you'll teach me that one day. I could totally kick ass with that. He said. Anyway, we better hurry up or we'll miss all the action. Indeed, Motohama said gesturing to Issei, you still coming right? Issei didn't expect to still be invited to this best view at the whole school. He thought it over quickly and decided if he was gonna pose as a student here, he would need to really appear as if he was trying to make friends. Sure. He said. Let's go. Sweet. Mitsuda said, wait till you get a load of this. Oh, hells yeah. Motohama said sitting on the grass, his hands on his knees. The three of them were outside sitting on a little hill on the grass next to the track field. The field was filled with a bunch of girls in what Issei could tell were the school uniforms for PE. You see this used to be an all-girls school hence why we picked it. About 80% of the school's population are bodacious and beautiful females and the rest are just us guys. Oh look. Issei didn't even bother looking. He felt like such an idiot coming here with these fools. The best view in the whole school really just meant a place where they could watch the girls run and jump around without them really being called stalkers. This is sick, he thought. Issei decided to busy himself by looking for the devil's base of operations. That's he was here for after all. He looked for the house-like structure excluded from the main building of the school, which is the exact description his grandmother had given him of the property. However, there was more than just one place that wasn't attached to the rest of the school. Buildings float along the outer rim of the grounds nearly all the way around, but one caught his attention the most. It wasn't because of its location. It wasn't because no one seemed to be walking over there. It had nothing to do with anything visible to the naked eye. What caught his attention were the magical defenses he felt surrounding this building and particularly. He felt the same defenses on a building somewhere else on campus as well. The building he could tell was magically defended was to his right. It looked huge for a school grounds building separate from the rest of the academy. As he observed it, something caught his attention. Not something. Someone. He saw an incredible amount of very dark red hair. Said hair belonged to the girl looking straight at him through the window. This was the same girl he saw in the hallway on his way here. She had blue-green eyes that seemed to glow. She had a beautiful heart-shaped face with full and warm eyebrows. She was wearing the female version of the school uniform. A stripped white shirt with another piece of dark clothing buttoned up on the lower half of her torso that made up a skirt. It had both black and dark red. Her figure was both voluptuous, buxom and poised. This girl gave him a vibe of elegance with a touch of playfulness. She just stared at him. Her expression unreadable. She matched the description his grandmother gave him of the future head of Clan Gremory. This was no doubt Rias Gremory, Motohama said following Issei's gaze and adjusting his glasses. Bust size 99. Waist size 58. Height 172 centimeters. She's one of the two school beauties only rivaled by Akeno Himejima. Issei stared back at her, knowing without a doubt that she knew exactly who he was as well. She no doubt noticed the distinctive features she was told of him. Damn, Mitsuda said, that's the bell. We better hurry. His first day of school had ended with the last bell. As Issei hurried out of the class, he made a left towards the stairs. However, on the other side of the hallway, he saw yet another girl just staring at him. The girl was small and petite. She had white hair that went below her shoulders on the sides, but was shorter in the front and back. Hazel eyes and two black cat hairpins on her head. She was wearing the school uniform obviously. Pretty. They are not very discreet, Issei concluded. It would seem they were presenting what was supposed to be a way to begin interaction. Issei hadn't planned on meeting them today. He needed to learn the school in the area. Get a feel for the people around him and establish a way to stay under the radar and invisible. So instead of walking up to whoever she was, Issei made his way down the stairs. Students were everywhere and as Mitsuda had pointed out earlier, majority of them were female. He kept as much distance without seeming suspicious away from anyone as possible. Too far and people would notice him. Too close and he'd feel uncomfortable and would likely assault another person, this time probably someone who didn't ever mean to touch him or rub their shoulders against him. And he really couldn't that same situation, but this time in front of most of the student body. He moved his way through the halls and made it appear as if he was just the new kid exploring his new school. Would Karen be doing the same thing? Issei asked himself. No. He would have made friends with every single person he could. Issei had a sudden itch in the back of his mind. Someone is following me. Issei pulled out his new phone that him and his mother got along with all his school stuff and put it up against his ear, faking a phone call. Albion, Issei whispered. I feel it as well. Albion's deep voice answered back in his head. Whoever this person is that is following me wants me alone. They must be maintaining the same distance until I am out of sight. I can't tell if they are friendly or not. I keep feeling them brush against my field barriers. They know who you are, that's for certain. The question is who they are. If whoever it is happens to be a devil, I doubt they belong to Gremory. Her group of devils haven't been hiding from me exactly. Even the male had a group of girls following him after he nodded to me. Issei didn't like not confronting his pursuers. If he could do it his way, he'd confront them head-on instead of playing the new kid who really didn't know anybody besides two perverts. Regardless of whether he liked it or not, he would have to play it cool. Upon finishing his recon scouting, he began leaving the school and taking a ride at the academy's entrance. Just as he took a few feet, he heard them yelling for him. Yo. Issei. Wait up bro. Mitsuda. Issei turned around with a neutral expression on his face and said, what? Mitsuda and Motohama were jogging to him and out of breath by the time they caught up. We just wanted, Motohama said in between breaths, to invite you over my house. One was bent over holding his knees, the other had his hands on his hips looking up and catching his breath. For what? Issei asked. So, you can finally watch Lady Malika. Motohama answered. Issei figured it had to be something along the lines of looking at some girl bounce around. He could do without it. No thanks, Issei answered, I'm not really into that. So, Issei, Mitsuda asked, do you swing the other way? Issei had to fight the urge he could feel in his magical blood. What is wrong with these guys? I don't want to watch pornography, so I'm immediately into men. He thought disgusted. I mean it's cool if you are bro, we don't judge. Motohama said. No, Issei said already tired of this conversation, I do not swing the other way. I just have no interest in those kind of videos. Oh. I got it. You're a Christian, aren't you? House Dawn was indeed a Christian house, as was he. That wasn't his reason for not wanting to watch those types of videos, but he figured he might as well just keep it short and sweet if this was a reason the guys were willing to accept. Yes. I am a Christian. Issei said. Got you? Well, how about video games? Mitsuda asked. Issei paused for a second when he turned around, his frustration now in check. Video games? He thought. I don't have any experience with video games. He answered. Oh man. So you have never done VR? VR? Issei asked. Dude, you have got to come over, Motohama said. We promise, no more talk about chicks. Issei thought it over and had to ask himself. What would Karen do? Quick flash. Humans can come across as rude and impulsive when you first meet them, Lily said in Issei's new room. She was leaving in a few minutes as she had to return to heaven. But they do have good hearts if you look past that. And if a human just decides to stab me in the back, am I to look past that as well? Issei asked half joking half serious. Give them a chance, Issei. You will need human friends as well to maintain your cover among them. Besides, she said kissing his forehead, what does it hurt to have a few friends? Issei didn't answer. Karen had friends. And in the end. Anyway, she said ready to take her leave, I must take my leave. The passage opens in 13 minutes, so I cannot delay. Issei walked her out of his room, down the stairs and to the front door. She had said all of her goodbyes to his parents and Luna a few hours ago before they fell asleep. He stood on the front porch with her and looked down at his feet. Don't be afraid, little wing. Lily said, giving him a long and warm hug of which he returned wholeheartedly. Albion says fear keeps you alive. He said, his voice a little muffled from his face being buried in her shoulder. I don't mean the mission. She said. He knew she didn't mean the mission. Issei was a little afraid of being away from his grandmother. And not just because he was attached. In reality, she was the only one that knew everything about him. The last direct angelic family he had. Once she was gone, he'd have to hide an entire part of his life from the rest. I know. They are your family, Issei. They love you. Not to mention Luna has always wanted to meet you. She's always wanted a sibling. Give your family a chance. Give the humans a chance. Don't try to do everything alone. It is a lot harder than you can imagine. I didn't even know Luna existed. He said in her shoulder. You never told me about her. I didn't want to throw another sibling in your face when even now, I know you are still grieving over your brother. He would be a better brother to her than I will. Don't say that, little wing. She said. It's true. No, it's not. You have everything you need to be a good brother. What is Housewalker's motto? Issei thought it over and said, a hand for a hand. If you extend your hand and reach out to her, she will do the same for you. And what if when she takes my hand I hurt her? She's family and your sister. You two are going to hurt each other. But you are also strongest together. Whatever storms come your way, you can weather them together. Issei just kept his face in her shoulder and said, I'll do what needs to be done. But boy, she said. I have to go, little wing. I've lost enough time already. Issei let her go, but she placed her hands on his shoulders and said, I love you, little wing. Don't you ever forget that, okay? Issei nodded and said, I love you too, Grandma. Before walking off she said one last time, the dawn will come. The dawn will come. He said back to her. Issei watched her form disappear behind a few buildings. A few minutes later he saw a golden light shoot off into the sky and aim for the moon. Give them a chance. He whispered to himself. Quick flash and give them a chance, Issei heard his grandmother saw in his head again. Issei? Mitsuda said. Huh? He asked, coming back into reality. You in? Video games? Issei took a deep breath and said, yeah. Alright. Sweet. The boys said in unison and shuffled off in the direction of Motohama's house. Issei felt again a body brush against the very edge of his barriers. Someone was still following him. He didn't bother looking over his shoulder. There was a chance whoever or whatever it was didn't know he was indeed aware of their presence. And whoever it was, Issei could tell, they were masters at hiding and blending in, just as he was. They likely didn't expect him to know he was being followed. Yo, Issei. You coming or what? They yelled back at him. Yeah. He said. The itch never going away. What game is this called again? Issei asked, taking what looked like binoculars without eyesights from Motohama. It's called Slender, Motohama said, putting on his own VR equipment. Scary ass game. But totally worth it when you take the Oculus off. Oh shit bro, Mitsuda said, putting his on as well. Last time we played this game I didn't have an extra pair of pants. We're all good this time though. Issei didn't know what to expect. As he put on the so-called Oculus, he was staring at what looked to be two big holes in front of him. He guessed he was supposed to be seeing darkness, but as an angel he could see right through it and was staring at something in front of him. He strapped the remotes onto his wrist like Motohama had shown him and gripped the remotes into his hands. Alright, just 1 second ladies, and there we go. Motohama said. All at once, Issei's Oculus came to life as it powered on and he was suddenly looking at a menu. The menu had a freakishly tall man in a black suit and red tie standing to the side. Only the man's skin was milk white and his face, well, he had no face. There was a small bump where the nose would be, but that was it for features. There were a bunch of options, and Motohama was adjusting everything on screen. Okay, let's do this shit. Mitsuda yelled, already feeling the adrenaline pumping. Albion, Issei thought. They seem to have left. I don't sense them anywhere close by. Let me know if anything changes, he said. Albion assured him he would. Then play, Motohama said. Issei couldn't lie. About 10 minutes into the game, he began to have a good time. The game was indeed scary, and Mitsuda was right to suggest everybody should take their own corner, so Issei didn't hurt anyone off of reflex. The sounds of grass crushing under his feet was enough to send off his alarms, but he assured himself it was fake reality. It wasn't real. And if by some mistake Issei sent a massive wave of fire through the room, he would use divine dividing to put it out before it did any damage. The boys would scream and jump, laugh and run. They had stuck together at first, but after Slender Man had showed up out of nowhere, they had all scattered. Motohama had told Issei to follow him, and he did, leaving Mitsuda to escape on his own. He called out to them asking where they were, and he just wasn't able to find him before the Slender Man had began to screw with him. Everywhere he turned, Slender Man would ultimately appear out of nowhere and scare him all over again. Meanwhile, Motohama and Issei were gathering pages. They reached 5 out of 8 before Mitsuda finally dies. The last 2 survivors were constantly stalked, and Slender Man showed neither of them mercy. After they found the 6th page, Motohama was killed, leaving Issei to fend for himself. He knew his chances of finding the last 2 pages would have been impossible if Motohama didn't know where all of them were and told Issei where to go while in spectating mode. Issei followed his directions, and all the boys continued screaming whenever he would turn a corner, and there was that tall and skinny faceless milk white man. They would yell run left. Or go back. Or their favorites oh shit. And oh fuck. Upon gather the last page, the other 2 yelled out in joy that they had beat the first level. Holy shit dude. I can't believe you survived that. Mitsuda said. Did you shit your pants yet? Motohama asked. Shut up. Mitsuda said. Issei took his Oculus off and looked at his watch. It's getting a little late. I think I'm gonna head out. Issei said. You sure man? Mitsuda said. There are more levels in this game. Yeah, Issei responded. I need to get home before my family worries. Okay, be careful out there. Motohama said. Yeah. Issei said while gathering his suitcase with his school supplies in it. Issei walked out the door to the front door. He opened it, thanked Motohama's parents for letting him come over and left. Upon reaching the bottom of the stairs, Issei realized he had a good time. Humans were kind of fun, he had to admit. I wish Karen and I could have done something like that. He thought. Issei shook himself and walked outside of the apartment building and began his walk home. But the second he stepped onto the concrete of the sidewalk, he felt yet again someone following him. Enough of this, Issei thought. Issei was walking down a brick path surrounded by trees. There were no other humans in sight, meaning no collateral damage for what was no doubt going to happen. He continued walking and looking forward until he came upon a fountain. The top of the fountain was shooting water in an arch back into its pool at the bottom. Issei reflexively jumped into the air as an explosion took place where he was standing only a second ago. He turned and flipped in the air before landing on the other side of the fountain, his fist up and ready. The world around him began to twist and bend. The sky above turned into a deep purple color with shades of pink here and there. Black feathers started falling out of the sky, and Issei could feel sick magic extending and forming into a dome, sealing himself and whoever else was in here together until one of the other fell. The fallen, Issei confirmed in his head. A seductive voice rang out all around the dome, aren't you the ever so agile devil? Issei looked up into the air and saw a female fallen angel floating in the sky, her black wings wide and on display. However, this was no simple fallen angel. It was her. Issei immediately felt the magic in his blood stand at attention. Albion fortified Issei's defenses and did his best to calm his host's nerves, as the boy was currently trying to maintain his calm. But there was a problem. A big one. You. He yelled, his voice magically enhanced. As conflicted as his emotions were, he forced himself to keep a level head. It was working for the moment. He knew if he fought her in anger and struck her down here and now, he would fall. He had to fight and resist. Only, the same thought kept ringing in his head. The same memory. The same tragedy. She was there that night. The night Karen was murdered. The fallen angel looked confused but amused. Me? Have we met before? It's no wonder she doesn't remember him. He was considerably younger. His facial features hadn't come in yet and he was almost half his size at the time. Issei took multiple deep breaths and said loud and clear, his voice still laced with magic, leave now Raynare. Issei was smart enough to know that would not sway the fallen to abandon her hunt. But he had to offer. He needed to resist the temptation to strike her down in anger. However, if she struck first, he was entitled to defend himself whether angry or not, without falling. "Raynare?" she asked, her interest in the boy now magnified. "You know my name. So, we have met. I won't tell you again," Issei said. Raynare laughed at the situation and said, "Who are you, boy? No one you want to get in a fight with. It just makes me want it more." She said seductively, "You apparently know me. But I have no clue who the hell you are." Issei didn't respond. "Come on," she said, putting on a puppy dog face, "just a little hint. Last warning," Issei said. "Keep it under control," Issei thought to himself. Raynare created a dark light spear in her hand. As she was a fallen, her light was considered dark among the angels in heaven. It was tinted with a dark red hue, and instead of being straight, it curved along the length of the spear. "I like it when they play rough," she said, taking aim. Raynare launched her dark light spear at Issei with every bit of force she had in her arm. As it reached him, there was a cloud of dust and debris that was created from the connection it must have made with a brick on the ground. "Almost too easy," she said arrogantly. Before she brought down her field, however, she thought for a second. What was that she heard? Just before the spear connected. It sounded like divide. It couldn't be. She stared intently at the debris cloud below her and watched to see if there was any movement. What she certainly didn't expect was the deep blue glow coming from somewhere in that cloud. All too suddenly, the smoke cleared with a great motion of blue light, and there he was. But instead of the sharp and bent devil wings she expected him to have, there was something totally different in its place. Issei was crouched down, one hand on the bricks, the other hand facing outward. He had his long Inus wings fully spread out and on display. His jaw was clenched in yet another attempt to keep his emotions in check. Refusing to give in to his loathing of one of his brother's killers. "Impossible." Raynare said, "Up in the sky, you can't be alive." Issei looked up and, quick as lightning, matched her height in the sky. "You should have left when you had the chance," Issei said, taking a defensive stance in the air. "That damned sacred gear can only do so much for you." Issei had a few seconds left before he could use divine dividing again in case she had something up her sleeve. He'd compensate with his other abilities. "Still want to play this game, Raynare?" Issei asked, continuously reminding himself he cannot strike her down in anger. Raynare responded by making her wings flap with a mighty wind, sending multiple hard as iron feathers toward Issei's body. The Heir of Dawn held out his hand and created a magic circle shield in front of him, deflecting the would-be painful feathers. Issei closed the distance between the two, ducked under her right jab, and brought his right knee into her bare stomach. As her body was arched due to his knee, Issei quickly placed his left hand on her back and pushed her towards the ground. As his hand left her back, a small magic circle could be seen resting on her skin that exploded and propelled her even faster toward the brick-lined ground. In the midst of this, Issei turned to face the ground and aimed his wings towards the moon, of which began to absorb its light. "Filthy devil!" Raynare yelled from the ground. She was injured and in pain, but she could still move. "Enough of this, Raynare," Issei yelled, trying not to take pleasure in his battle. "This is only for play, demon spawn." Even in the midst of a fight, she could make her words seductive. Raynare pulled the water from the fountain and made it swish and swash around her, dancing to her will. Issei remembered she was skilled in the elements too. Raynare poured her dark light into the water and it took on a glowing dark red hue, no longer pure water. The liquid seemed to dangerously hum with a passion Issei did not like. And like a bat out of hell, she sent it shooting up to him in a massive wave. The dark light increased its mass tenfold and created much more tainted water. It came up in an unpredictable slither and circled around the air. Issei knew this was a bad situation and attempted to dodge the dangerous liquid. He could only fly so high with the purple-pink dome surrounding the two of them. Issei entered a dive on the other side of the fountain before he felt a stinging sensation on his ankle. Looking down, he saw the tainted water had gripped his ankle before it ran up the length of his left leg. Raynare angled her hand up and over her head before angling straight towards the ground. A second later, a loud boom was heard as the Heir of Dawn was slammed into the ground. "Ah!" Issei yelled, feeling his left arm was injured. Raynare brought him up into the air again and attempted to rush him down once more. Issei raised his right hand above his head and a crackling sound soon filled his ears. He aimed it at the point just below his foot. A powerful bolt of white and blue lightning struck the thick white liquid and broke the connection of the water that was stuck on Issei's leg. He balanced himself in the air as the last of the tainted water left his leg. Raynare brought the rest of her water back down to her side and said, "Since when do devils conjure holy lightning? Who are you, boy?" Issei held his hand out to his side, summoning a small lightning storm around his body before saying, "The last person you should have considered attacking." As Issei aimed his hand in her direction, Raynare aimed hers in his. Tainted water and holy lightning clashed in the air. The shockwave that came after sent them both flying backwards. Issei came tumbling to the ground, kicked out of the air. Raynare was sent backwards into a tree. "Albion," Issei thought. "Almost there. But you are going to need to save your magical strength for it to work. Buy yourself some time." Issei got up shakily, bringing his feet under him, and looked to Raynare getting out of a major dent in a tree. "I'm impressed, devil," she said, steadying herself against a tree. "Stop talking," Issei said, concentrating. Issei charged at her on foot. Raynare saw it coming this time and brought both her wings in front of herself and took the initial force of his rush. The two ended up in the middle of a grove of trees, no longer by the fountain. Issei was flipped over by Raynare and thrown against a tree of which he planted his feet against, pushed off, and landed a few feet away from her. Both of them brought up their fist, choosing to reserve what magical energy they both had left. They ran at each other. Stopping when they reached about a foot distance, Issei ducked under Raynare's right hook before blocking her incoming kick towards his face with his right arm and sent her leg back down to her side. Issei moved in and kicked the inside of her left knee. She made the mistake of bringing her hands down, and Issei brought his foot up to connect with her face in a roundhouse kick. The kick sent Raynare back a few feet, but she recovered and brought her hands up again. Issei came in quickly, winding his right arm back a little for a stronger punch. Raynare dodged it and kicked Issei's arms that he brought up to protect his face, which was her original target. Raynare laughed and said, "I'll leave you in this forest an empty pile of unholy meat." Raynare produced a spear of dark light and instead of throwing it, attempted to run Issei through with it. He knew it would hurt, but it was better than being skewered. He dodged her spear but grabbed onto it with his right arm. The stinging sensation came. He took his left and swung at her outwardly, to which she brought up her right hand to block it. Issei brought his left arm back once more, and as he swung at her outwardly again, she pulled her spear free and kicked Issei in his stomach, sending him flying back into a tree. Issei ducked as she swung her spear at his head towards her right. Issei then jumped over her, swing at his legs, and rolled, coming to a defensive stance again as that tree fell over with a loud boom. Raynare charged at him, spear in hand, to which Issei grabbed with both hands while being pushed backwards and diverted its end into the trunk of another tree. Issei brought his right arm around for a hook that Raynare blocked with her right forearm. She then punched him in the stomach with her left, making Issei bend to the sudden force. Issei responded by punching her square in the face with his left arm. Blood flew from her lip, but in the midst of being sent backwards, she sent a kick into Issei's ribs that threw him sideways, but he managed to keep his defense up. Raynare produced another dark light spear. "If only I could use my own without blowing my cover," Issei wished in pain. Issei leaned to the right to duck and leaned to the left, dodging a diagonal swing. He then adjusted his feet, moving his body mostly to the left as she swung at him in an upper motion before ducking again. The action caused Issei to grunt in pain, bringing attention to his hurting ribs. "How much pain am I actually in that Albion is suppressing for me?" he wondered. Raynare charged at Issei again, to which the angel raised his right foot and stomped on the spear, sending the tip into the ground. The spear exploded, sending them both flying back. Raynare hit a tree, while Issei used his wings to stop his backpedal. He wasted no time and ran to Raynare. As the girl was getting her bearings, Issei jumped just a foot into the air, his other leg aimed at her, and kicked her in her chest. The force was enough to break a huge chunk of the tree off as Raynare slammed through it. She landed on her back. "That's enough, Raynare," Issei yelled. Raynare looked battered and injured. Her voice was full of the physical pain she was feeling in her body. "Nothing will stop this. Now, Boris." Issei was confused but suddenly yelled out in great pain. Looking down, Issei saw a green dark light spear protruding from his right leg. Issei turned and sensed yet another one was incoming. "Divide Issei's sacred gear," yelled out, reducing the next light spear into eventually nothing. Two men came out of the shadows. "Fallen. When did these two get here?" he asked himself. Issei cried out in pain again. Raynare had thrown a dark light spear straight through his stomach. Looking down, he saw the dark red rod dissipate and leave a big red and open bloody gash. Issei was losing feeling in his body. "No. Move. Come on. Move," he yelled in his mind. But his body was failing quickly. Another yell, this time filled with a gush of blood, escaped his mouth. A purple spear protruded from in between his collarbone and his shoulder. They were killing him slowly. Purposely avoiding his heart of his head to drag it out. "Move," he told himself. His body gave no response as he fell to his knees on the ground. "About time the two of you showed up," Raynare said, standing in a terrible angle. Many bones in her body were definitely broken. "We would have been here sooner, but the boss was running us all ragged," a deep male voice responded. "Issei," Albion yelled in his head. He could hear his partner screaming his name over and over again. But every time he heard it, the voice only got quieter. Issei fell from his knees to his side. He attempted to hold his stomach, but his body was unresponsive. He coughed up even more blood as he was flipped over onto his back forcefully by Raynare. "And what is this?" he heard the female say, but this time she was right next to him. The fallen angel knelt down and looked over him. He got a good look at her face. That same face that conspired to kill him and killed Karen along with the other 11 that were there that night. Her hair was long and black. Eyes a light shade of red mixed with purple. full lips and wearing almost nothing. She reached a hand toward Issei and put it down the collar of his shirt. A second later her hand pulled out Issei's necklace holding Karen's 3 angel feathers. "The prize from an angel you defeated?" she asked. "I'm impressed. Consider this a divine justice for your sins against God and his followers, you filthy demon." She snatched the necklace off of him and said, "Ta." The fallen angel then disappeared, along with the purple dome. Issei laid there on the ground in some of the worst pain of his life. Skewered. Broken. Bleeding. Suffering. His body would convulse, but he himself could not move it of his will. It fought against him. He had feeling in his right fingers, but that was the extent of what he could manage. "No, I'm gonna die here," he thought. "After everything that's happened. After all the training I did. I will die from being struck down by one of my brother's killers." Issei couldn't believe the irony. Maybe this was just how it was supposed to be. "Issei. Albion." Issei said in his head. "I'm sorry. We need to get you up," he said. "Hey Al?" Issei asked. "Get up, Issei. Do you think my family is cursed?" "Issei. It only makes sense," Issei said to him in his head. One thing that wasn't paralyzed were his tear glands. Maybe House Dawn was always meant to be crushed by the fallen. "Get up, Issei. Albion, we both know I can't get up from this. I can't feel anything." Albion was a dragon. Older than time itself. And yet, his host, the one he respected and came to care for, was at his end. Bleeding on the floor like a dog. "Hey Al," Issei thought. "Yes?" he asked. I'm glad you're here," Issei said along with blood rushing forth and nearly choking him before he swallowed it. "I wouldn't be anywhere else, partner." Issei felt lost. And afraid. But at least he wasn't alone. He however felt like he was without. That fallen had taken his necklace and in turn he felt she had taken Karen with her. He tried to move his arm up to his neck but only his hand moved. "I'm sorry grandmother," Issei thought. "I failed you. I failed heaven. I failed Karen." Wait. His hand moved. Issei downturned his eyes to his hand and saw he could move it freely. Perhaps he could manage, but would she know what and who to look for? It was his best chance. A very low chance, but it was better than doing nothing. Also, he could die easier knowing he did everything his body would allow him to. Issei moved his hand, aimed it at his side, and said a quiet Allah. As his familiar began to take form out of the ground, Issei felt the double doors of his eyes close. Wondering if they would ever open again. Issei's alarm clock went off and began to encourage him to wake up. It was saying things like, "Wake up or I'll kill you dead. Wake up or I'll chop off your balls." By Issei raised a hand and pushed the button on top, shutting the stupid thing up. Who in the world had created such an alarm clock? He found it troublesome the first morning, but eventually just bought the thing to have something wake him up. He let out a breath through his nose and sat up. And almost immediately, Aquila jumped on him. "Master Dawn. You're okay. Thank God you are okay. I was so worried. You summoned me and all I saw was your lifeless body lying there on the ground in a pool of blood." Aquila was in her humanistic form. She had the appearance of a small child around 8 years old. Her hair was long and blonde reaching her lower back. Her eyes were a heavy purple and her face was heart-shaped. She had the ability to make her human appearance that of a teenager or adult, but she was a child at heart and preferred this form. She wore a white dress shirt with a maroon-colored skirt straps that came over her shoulder. In her long straight blonde hair, she had 2 skinny golden bows on either side of her face, tied in the shape of angel wings. "I'm okay Aquila, really," Issei said, "thanks to you. I knew you would come through." "I was so worried master," she said, hiding her small face underneath all her hair and burying at his shoulder. "What happened after I summoned you? How did I get back home?" he asked. She looked up at him and said, "When I appeared I tried to wake you up, but your eyes just would not open. Albion told me I needed to find the Devil King you were assigned to work with. I flew as fast as the wind could carry me and found who he was speaking of. I told her what happened and she disappeared in a magic circle almost immediately. I told her where your family lived so she brought you here and healed you." Issei digested all the information quickly as his training told him to do and thanked the god that used to be in heaven that he had a familiar and that the Devil King girl he was to assist helped him so swiftly. "Thank you Aquila," Issei said putting a hand on the small girl's head. "I owe you my life." "No Master Dawn," she responded, "I am in your service. You owe me nothing. You are more than my servant," he said seriously. "Thank you," she said wiping her eyes and getting off of his lap. She stood on the carpet and watched as he put his feet on the ground but didn't get out of bed. "Have you been up all night?" he asked. "I couldn't sleep until I knew you were okay," she said. Aquila did look very tired. Familiars could only be out for so long before exhaustion took them. They could sleep in the real world but not if they were under distress or worried. "Get some rest. You deserve it," Issei said shaking the sleep off and bringing magic into his hand. "I will master," Aquila said and bowed before being swallowed by the magic circle that sent her back into her comfortable domain. "Albion." Issei said. Good to see you up and moving, hatchling. The deep voice of the dragon within him responded. It would seem my path doesn't end bleeding to death. Not today anyway. Issei looked over his bare chest and saw that there wasn't even a scar from the darklight spears that had stabbed him nearly to death. His stomach as well was free of any scar or residual damage. Issei then lifted the blanket over his legs to check before wondering. Why am I naked? He asked himself. My clothes were likely bloody and damaged beyond repair. It makes sense not to be dressed in those garbs, he concluded in his mind. He thought about what happened last night. Raynare, he growled in his mind. Of all the people that could have been attacking him yesterday, it had to be her. In the midst of their fight, Issei was tempted to unleash what Karen had taught him all those decades ago. But it required his wings. And it would have blown his cover. Fighting Raynare was easy physically. But emotionally, it cut a lot deeper than he was willing to admit. Ever. To anyone. Screw it, he thought, she's not worth fretting over. The other two. Boris and someone else I have never seen before. They caught him off guard. He promised himself it would never happen again. Is it morning already? A smooth voice said, coming to life behind him. Issei was on his feet, turned around, and had magic primed in his hand in a second, ready to unleash it. That was, until he saw his sheets shuffle. The first thing he saw was thick strands of red hair falling towards the bed. Next was a head. Gremory? Issei asked, still shocked from finding anyone in his bed. Issei? The voice asked as she rubbed her eyes. Hey, she said, getting up and stretching while she yawned. Issei then noticed the girl was unclothed. What are you doing here? He asked her. After a second or two, he managed to pull his magic back into himself. But calming down reminded him he was naked too. With a frustrated grunt, he used magic to put clothes onto himself. Good morning, she said brightly. Why are you naked and in my bed? Issei asked, turning around and facing the wall. Get hold of yourself, Dawn, Issei said to himself. He didn't allow his mind to think impure thoughts. Such actions could result in falling. I'm sorry, she said, yawning again before hugging one of her knees to her body. I can't sleep with clothes on. And your wounds were a lot more severe than I had anticipated. It required that I stay close to you through the night, and healing magic flows best with contact. It brought to light once again that he was saved by this devil. It could be she had no sensual intent and that it was purely for healing purposes. He had to clear his throat before he spoke. Thank you, Gremory, he said, humbling himself, for saving my life. I like to think that since we will be working so closely together, you would just call me Rias, Issei. Issei was slightly taken aback at how easily she used his first name. He preferred being called by his first name anyway. But everyone in heaven knew of the four great seraph houses. Dawn, Crucifix, Harmony and Kingdom. And thus, all angels knew exactly who the heirs of such houses were. The only people Issei had ever known to call him by his first name outside of his family was Gabriel, his oldest childhood friend. The lords of the other seraph houses. And the children he went to school with, up until they all realized what he was to be. I guess Rias. He said, still facing the wall. There was a knock on the door followed by a small voice that said, Issei. Luna? Yeah, he responded, just a sec. He moved to the door before he remembered he had a fully unclothed girl sitting on his bed. He created a magical circle in his hand before holding up into the air behind him. It created a false image of his room being empty and hid Ria's naked form behind the magical wall. Issei opened the door to reveal his little sister. She was wearing the uniform to her own school. It consisted of a white buttoned-up long-sleeved shirt. A green collar with a white stripe along the edges of it. A green skirt with a fold every 3 inches all the way around that had a white stripe along the top and bottom. She had on black leggings and black shoes. She carried a bag in her left hand and had on a violin bag on her back. Her long brown hair was tied up in a single ponytail. Hey Luna, he said a little too gloomy. Issei, she began to say in an increasingly shy voice, I was wondering if you wanted to go to Shibuya after school. Sorry, I'm busy. He said. The words came out blunter than he had meant. But he couldn't very well tell her he'd likely be conversing with devils all evening. And he didn't want to flat out lie to her. Oh okay, she said, disappointment on her face, tomorrow maybe. I don't know. We'll see. He said. Are you okay? I'm fine. You sue. Luna, I said I'm fine. Okay. Goodbye. He said, closing the door. Issei may as well have hit her in the chest by the way she flinched at his words. Her mouth hung slightly open and her eyes somehow seemed to have gotten smaller. Issei turned around in his room before he paused and thought to himself. He had just yelled at his little sister. For inviting him to spend some time with her. And he had just chewed her out. Crap, he thought, what did I do? Luna, wait, he said, opening the door. But the sound of the front door downstairs closing reached his ears before he could complete the words. The only way she could have reached it that fast was if she ran. Luna, he said quietly to himself. He didn't know what made him so testy just now. Why had he yelled at her? And why did he slam the door in her face? Where did that come from? I'll make it up to her, he promised himself. He closed the door behind him with a click and waved his hand across his body to take down the magical wall. He laid his head against the door and closed his eyes. Issei. He heard his mother say from downstairs, "You're gonna be late." "I'll be down in a minute," he said. He still couldn't believe what he had just done. "Pretty festive here in the mornings here, isn't it?" Rias asked. Issei didn't bother getting off the door or opening his eyes. He simply asked her, "Please put something on so I can open my eyes." Rias stood up from the bed and walked over to a neat and folded pile that was her clothing. She grabbed something Issei didn't see and put it on. "Better?" she asked. Issei opened his eyes and saw that he had her bottom underwear on. It was still extremely revealing for an angel to see. It hardly helped anything. But he forced himself to keep his thoughts out of fallen places. He turned back around and faced the door again. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "I assume you mean the places I got stabbed." "I do. Your body is amazing, by the way. I wasn't expecting that. 3 lethal blows to the body from light spears and you recovered in no time at all." "Arclight spears," Issei corrected her. "We consider any weapons they create from light tainted and unholy." "We are learning things about each other already," she said with a smile. "I've never seen anything like it. From the points of impact, I assume the only way they managed to get close to you was because there was more than one fallen angel present." "Yeah. Any other would have died from those wounds," she said, clasping the back of her bra. "Why was I naked?" Issei asked, his eyebrows clenched in concentration. "I told you," she responded, "your wound couldn't heal on its own. So, I held you close and used my magic. That doesn't mean we needed to be undressed. It only works if we're completely undressed. Devil magic differs a great deal from angelic." "I guess it does," she said with a small laugh. "You don't have to worry, we didn't do anything. I'm still a virgin." That caught Issei off guard, but nonetheless, he kept his eyes on the door and refused to turn around until she was decent. "I'd likely be a fallen had she done anything in my sleep," he said to himself. However, if he found out she had done anything and it turned out he was a fallen, he'd be free to show her the true power of a dawn at what it means to defile one's purity. Especially without their knowledge. Oh, how she would have regretted it. "Can angels even do such a thing without falling?" she asked. Apparently, she had moved right next to him. He looked away from her and said, "Not at their leisure." "So, it's a sin up there?" "No. We have requirements. Ways to make such a thing blessed and not sinful." "Really?" she asked, interested. "Like what?" "Marriage," he said. "If two are married, then they can indulge all they want with each other." "Interesting," she said, still putting her clothes on. "Issei." His mom called. "Yeah, Mom. Coming," he said back. "I guess we should head to school. We are awfully close to being late. We haven't formally introduced ourselves though." "I know who you are. You know who I am." He responded, finally looking back at the girl that was back to being completely dressed. "Just in case," she said, stepping up to him and offering her hand. "Devil Rias of Clan Gremory." Issei looked her up and down once before shrugging his shoulders and taking her hand. "Angel Issei of House Dawn." "Issei," she said, trying his name on her lips yet again. "I like that name." Instead of walking next to Rias, Issei made sure he walked in front by a few feet. High schoolers in the mortal world tended to take anything such as walking too close to the opposite gender as something more than walking. He didn't want to deal with the ridiculousness that came with it. So, he resorted to walking in front. He knew this girl was one of the highest class in the entire school. The whole school seemed to glue their eyes to her as she walked. She grabbed their attention without trying, and any and all would do anything for the chance to be closer to her than they were now. Rias caught up and stopped him before saying, "I'll have one of my devils get you after school." Issei didn't say anything back, instead stood where he was, a little into the entrance of the building, and scanned the room, checked to see if Raynare was idiotic enough to come back to the school again. What the fu Mitsuda began to say as he attempted to foolishly hit Issei, but the later sensed the incoming contact and leaned out of the way before pushing him into a grey pillar to his right. Issei watched as the boy pushed himself off the pillar and turned around, rubbing his face. "Shit," Mitsuda said, "forgot you're a badass when it comes to fighting. But dude, how are we supposed to be bros when it turns out you're dating Big Red on the DL, man?" And this is exactly why Issei insisted on walking a certain distance away from her. Everyone would assume something. "Mitsuda, Issei is our new buddy," Motohama said, coming up next to Issei. "We should let him explain. Where did you go? And what did you do after you left yesterday?" "Really?" he thought to himself, already exhausted. Before Issei completely ignored them and walked off on his own, he remembered how he actually had fun yesterday playing video games with these two. And to a certain extent, they could be decent people. "She showed me a faster route to the school," he said. "We live relatively close. That's all." The two boys seemed to accept the answer relatively easy. "It would seem he's recovered a lot faster than you expected." A girl leaning against a pillar said to the red-haired beauty. "Hello again, Rias." good to see you. The girl was shorter than Rias, but not by much. She had short black hair and eyes mixed with pink and purple. She wore the school uniform with red glasses on her face. Good to see you too, Sona. Rias responded. She walked up to her and trained her eyes to the person she was looking at. That the angel sent to work with us? She asked, looking over the ledge at the boy with blue eyes speaking with two others. That's him. Issei Dawn. He doesn't look to be having any trouble adjusting to life here. He does adapt quite easily. I think we'll find him to be a great ally, as well as the rest of the angels. The end of school bell dinged and donged all throughout the school. Issei finished putting all his papers and equipment into his bag, waiting on whoever Rias Gremory's messenger would be. And almost out of nowhere, the female students that were still in the classroom broke out into hysterical cheers and shouts. Looking to his left, he saw a boy enter the classroom. The male was tall with short blonde hair, no longer than Issei's. He had blue eyes, much lighter than his own. They were closer to Luna's eye color. He wore the school uniform and had a mole just below his left eye. Look. It's Kiba. A handful of the girls shouted out loud. Hey there. You are all looking lovely today. He said with a voice of gold. You look better. Someone said. I'm sorry the room's not cleaner, another girl said. Issei would have gone back to just waiting patiently if this man hadn't walked up to him and said, ah, there you are. And here you are. Issei said, looking at the guy skeptically. Excellent, I'm here on an errand from Rias Gremory. He didn't bother responding, but instead stood up and grabbed his case. Lead the way. Issei said. Issei liked the dark sometimes, but this was very different. The only lights provided in the room came from the candles set all across the room. He saw two green couches faced towards each other with a coffee table in the middle of it. A set of candles sat on top. On the far wall there were picture frames of various people and places he did not know of. The curtained-off room to the right and a massive desk to his left. The girl with the silvery white hair he saw from yesterday was sat on the couch eating some sort of sweet. So, I was right. That girl is one of Gremory's devils. Oh? You've seen her before. Kaneko Taoju is a first year and a valued member of the orc. The girl noticed the two that had just entered. Our new angel friend here believes he's seen you around the school before. The girl nodded her head once at Issei in acknowledgement and went back to eating her chocolate. Issei's angelic senses were going off. Not in a way that told him he was a threat. But in a way that informed him that he was somewhere with a lot devils. And in the very center of one of their bases. Your clothes are laid out when you're ready, Ms. President. A very smooth and silky voice said from inside the room. Thank you, Akeno. Rias responded. Again, Issei felt compelled to look away. And who is that? The owner of the same silky voice said from just outside the curtained-off area. Issei looked to his right. The girl approaching was a beyond beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure. She had very long black hair tied in a ponytail that reached all the way down to her legs. She had long locks coming down in front and around her face as well. There was an orange ribbon keeping it all in place. Her eyes were a deep violet that seemed to vibrate with an energy he had never seen before. She wore the customary female version of the Kuo Academy's uniforms with black calf-length socks and brown shoes. I didn't see you. She said, playfully laughing. She walked closer to him, just a little too close for his comfort. His stomach flexed as he tried to resist the urge he had of moving away. It's okay, I won't bite. So, you're the angel, huh? It's nice to meet you. She said while bowing to him. Out of respect he bowed himself and stood up straight again. There's nothing to be nervous about, she assured him, everyone here is super nice. Even to angels. I'm Akeno, the vice president of the Occult Research Club. She's the queen, Issei said to himself. He knew they rated each other like chess. Angels ranked as a deck of cards. The girl, Akeno, smelt of rich vanilla. Issei Dawn. Pleasure. He said. Why does she seem so familiar? Issei asked himself. Sorry to keep you waiting. Rias Gremory said as she came out of the curtains. I know it's terribly rude, but I didn't have a chance to wash after leaving your place. Not a problem, Issei said back to her. Well, now that everyone is here, we would like to officially welcome you to the Occult Research Club. Rias Gremory went and sat on the edge of her desk. The other four took a seat on one of the couches. Issei sitting next to Kaneko. Though I'm sure you have guessed that the club is just a front. She said. Meant to look like some sort of hobby, I got it. And you're the angel sent to be a bridge between our kind and yours. Akeno said. And just like that, it hit Issei. Akeno looks almost exactly as Raynare does. The only major differences being Raynare is fallen and Akeno is a devil. Their eyes were different from each other as well. But still, aside from Raynare, Akeno felt familiar. And of course, you are already in the know of the fallen angels. Rias said. We just say fallen. There is nothing angelic about them. Your dragon told me you have a history with the fallen you fought with yesterday. Did he? Issei said looking over his shoulder. I did. Was Albion's only response. Issei took a few breaths and looked at the table placed in front of him. Is that what she wants to know? He thought to himself. Everyone in the room had their eyes trained on the only angel in the room. And he knew they all wanted some form of answer. He'd give them the short version. I knew Raynare as a child, Issei began. Many angels believe that just because the fallen no longer have white wings doesn't mean they can't still serve God. He stopped himself, swallowed and continued, someone I knew was one of those angels. He was in contact with numerous fallen, and through him, I knew a few as well. One of them was Raynare. I knew her when she was still an angel. The fallen I fought with yesterday. She was a lot friendlier back then. As of this moment, however, we are not on speaking terms. And that's all he would offer any of them. Raynare was a touchy subject. It wasn't close to home. The subject of Raynare was as home as it got. We understand. Rias said. She must have been given a mission to track you, get you alone and finish you off. Raynare only has 2 wings. Alone she couldn't hope to put me down. But, Rias said, she must have detected that you had a sacred gear. And assumed you were a devil, as no other angel or fallen have ever attended this place. She saw you alone and she made her move. Angels and fallen detect each other easier than devils and the rest. Plus, Issei said, Raynare has always been an expert tracker. May we see your sacred gear? Rias asked. She too held deep curiosity in its appearance. Issei stood up and walked around the table until he was standing opposite Rias' Gremory. Without much effort at all, Issei exposed his sacred gear to the air. 2 white guards that were connected to his back held in place the 8 blue energy feathers that appeared massive and sharp. Divine dividing. Issei said. The White Dragon Emperor. Rias said. You know of me? Albion said. There are many names associated with your being. The last wielder was a devil before my time, I believe. This is puzzling though. Pure bloods are unable to be vessels to sacred gears. How is it the 2 of you are bonded? Albion and I have been wondering the same for almost 50 years. We simply are. Issei returned his wings into himself and remained standing. Is it safe to assume everyone here serves you? This is my peerage. Said Rias. All those that you see before you serve Rias' Gremory. Daughter of the great and powerful devil. The Makwi of Gremory. Rias stood and was the first to reveal her wings. They were dark red, darker than ever her hair. They were bent in very weird ways. Forming both an upside down and a right side up V shape. The wings were leathery and scaly. They appeared to have extremely sharp feathers, if you can call it that, on the bottom. Each looked deadly and threatening. If earthly physics applied to, she was followed by Akeno. After her came Kaneko and Kiba. Their wings were all released. Isn't this exciting? You're the first angel to be working with us devils. You're as good as one of us now. Akeno said with a smile. Issei stayed standing and looked at them. So, he thought, these will be the devils I work with. So far, not bad. Don't be shy. Rias said looking to Issei, you don't need to worry. The magical barriers in this building won't reveal your angelic powers to anyone. And we already know what you are. They want to see my wings, Issei concluded. What they say is true, Albion chimed in through his mind, your power signatures will be hidden. Issei looked at each of them around the room and asked himself one question. What would Karen do? And he knew the answer almost immediately. Karen would take a leap of faith and trust them. But isn't that exactly how he ended up dead now? Trusting those fallen. Issei let out a deep breath and willed his true angel wings to come forth. A set of 8 golden feathery wings protruded from his back. They stacked nicely and neatly with each other and were just as big as his grandmother's. They were beautiful and royal. A true angel. Only 8? Akeno asked. You are of a seraph house, yes. Why don't you have 12? Issei took a moment before answering. How did she know something like that? Why did she? In heaven, power isn't just given and set. An angel of a seraph house, as you say, naturally have 12 wings. But times have changed. To inherit more wings, one must become more like Christ. Issei said. He remembered Karen was almost at 10 wings just before he died. Issei himself only the day before his death obtained his 7th and 8th wings. Karen was so proud that Issei had caught up to him. Karen's wings, however, had always been white. Never gold like Issei's or his grandmother's. The same was true for his parents. Always white. His grandmother told him that it was simply a gift from God and not everything was as easy as questions and answers. When he first showed them to his classmates at school, a lot of the children called him Goldilocks. A story told by humans. But eventually people came to realize that Michael Crucifix and Lily Dawn, the leaders of heaven, had golden wings as well. And never called him that again. How do you know of the seraphs? Issei asked. Someone I knew long ago told me of them, she said with a masked smile. We're glad to have you here. Rias said, welcome Angel Issei Dawn. Issei nodded once and returned his wings to his back. You are gonna need this, Rias said walking over to him. Hold out your hand please. Issei gave her his hand and put a single index finger on it. A red sigil appeared and floated above his hand. A seal. Issei said. He had and could produce his own for Dawn on other beings. Just to make sure any who see you believe you are a devil of Gremory. He could remove it any time if need be. That makes it official. Welcome to our family. Family huh? He thought. Oh, crap my family. I gotta head home. He said urgently only now looking at the time. Be seeing you. He didn't wait for any of them to reply, he just headed out of the door and began walking home as fast as possible. Issei continued walking down a long street that would turn left and lead him to yet another to take him back to his house. He got lost in his thoughts. They had welcomed him into their group a lot easier than he had ever expected. And they had plenty reason to keep him at a certain distance. That is what he would have done roles reversed. They didn't know him. He was their exact opposite. And yet, they didn't care. Heaven and hell had been at each other's throats for centuries. War was almost inevitable. But heaven had decided to send Issei to assist the devils was the key to ending the war before it started. Issei's ends were once again thrown on edge. Coming to a stop, he turned around and got into a fighting position, ready for whatever came next. The sky began turning purple, and once more feathers began falling and a dome began to form out of the sky. Heels could be heard clicking against the asphalt ground, and a figure came into the light under a street lamppost. What a surprise, a woman said. You're not what I thought, but I'm certain you are the one I was sent to find. My name's Kalawarner and I have orders to destroy you. This Kalawarner woman was tall and buxom with brown eyes and long navy blue hair that obscured her right eye. Her attire consisted of a maroon trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest. She also wore a gold necklace around her neck. This is truly unusual. She said in a deadpan face. Look, Kalawarner is it? I'm in no mood for this. I suggest you return to whoever gave you these orders and keep away from me. This will not go how you want it to. I promise you that. Issei responded. You shouldn't be alive. She was supposed to have taken care of this already. She said. A yellow dark spear formed in her hands. Throw that and you will regret it, Issei said all too serious. She raised her arm and hurled it as hard as she could at Issei. Davida's sacred gear shouted as he extended his wings. The spear was reduced to nothing before it managed to reach him. He gave her no time at all. The energy he had taken from that spear made his longinus wings glow slightly brighter. Extending his hands out to his sides, he pulled the excess energy into them. Instead of the yellow of the dark spear, the energy came out the same color as the blue feathers on his wings. It came out in what looked like little starlights. Issei, after collecting it all, brought both of his hands together and combined the split energy. It meshed together like water coming in contact with more water. He pulled back his arm and thrusted it in the direction of Kalawarner. The blast ran in a beam of blue light and caused a woman to scream in pain before being thrust backwards into a concrete wall that now had a human-sized dent in it. She removed herself from the wall and flew high into the air before saying, "Is that a sacred gear? I've got better things to do. I'm going to let someone else deal with this crap." She flew back into the sky and took all her feathers and her dome with her. Issei stayed watch the sky, making sure she was really gone from his senses before relaxing and taking deep breaths to calm down. She mentioned Raynare. Does Ray really want me dead that badly? He said out loud. She isn't the same girl you knew, Issei. You have to let her go. His dragon said from the wings still out on his back. Issei made a fist and said, I know you're right but I don't want to believe that. You didn't know her when I knew her. She was more than this. I don't doubt it. But we let her live once after Karen died. And she tried killing you again. Now she sends others after you. Issei knew Albion was right. Deep down he knew Raynare, or as he called her when they were children, Ray, was no longer the girl he once knew. The girl he once. I should get home. I still have to make amends with Luna. Issei turned the key to the lock on the front door and pushed it in. He saw some lights were still on in the kitchen and in the living room. Issei? He heard his dad call. Yeah, I'm home, Issei said taking off his shoes by the front door. School ran a little late and I ran into some trouble on the way home, but I'm all good. He entered the living room to see his parents watching a TV show. Oh good, his mom said with a bright smile. I was starting to worry you had gotten attacked on your way home or something. You missed dinner, sweetie, but I'll heat up some leftovers for you. She said getting up and moving around the couch to get to the kitchen. Thanks mom. Is Luna still up? Issei asked. I'm not sure. She ate and went straight to her room. She's always been that way. Really conservative you know. You should go check on her. I'll call you when your food is ready. If she doesn't answer just open the door. She tends to have her headphones on a lot. And if you want, you can watch our favorite show with us. Issei's dad offered. Sounds good, Issei said already bounding up the stairs his suitcase in hand. Her room was the second on the right, past the bathroom. He knocked on the door. Luna? He asked. Hey Luna, you up? He still didn't get a response. I'm coming in okay? He said. He twisted the door handle and walked into a dimly lit room. She had a lantern on a desk next to her bed. A rising and falling motion could be continuously seen from under a blanket. Luna was fast asleep. Issei walked over to her bed and saw she had fallen asleep with her headphones on. He took them out and pushed pause on a song he could see her phone playing. He pushed the power button and placed the phone on the desk next to her bed. Issei turned the chair at her desk around and sat on it. He closed his eyes and held his hands over his face. And then he spoke. I know you won't hear any of this, but I really want to say I'm sorry that I blew up at you. Luna's hair was obscuring a lot of her face, and a small spot could be seen rising and falling. I'm scared, you know. I've never been the big brother. Karen always looked out for me. Kept me out of trouble. Taught me how to be better at what I excel in and what I was terrible at. Issei put his arms on the desk and placed his forehead on them. I'm not the big brother that you deserve. I've been here 5 days, and I've barely said more than 20 words to you. He closed his eyes with his head down. I wish Karen was here. He'd know what to say. How to make up for 14 years of lost time. Something like dawns have to stick together. And the truth is I haven't let myself depend on anyone other than Albion in a long time. Albion's by dragon, by the way. Which you won't remember anyway, cause you're asleep. I'm gonna do better for you, little sister, even if it takes me my whole life. I'm gonna try. Issei knew he would likely end up hurting her again. But he didn't want to. It was the last thing he wanted. He wanted to be to her what Karen was to him. But watching your only brother be slaughtered before your very eyes had a way of ripping out a piece of your soul. Issei Dawn? A random voice said directly in his ear. Issei sat upright and looked all around him. There was nobody around. Is this Issei Dawn of the angels? Issei finally noticed. On his left side was a magic circle. Purple. This wasn't an angel or a devil. Who is this? Issei said aggressively into the circle. They are coming for her. The voice said in a whisper. Who is what? Who is this? For now, call me Sparrow. But that isn't what is important right now. The girl. Luna. They know who she is. They know what blood she carries. She is in danger. Issei's blood ran cold and he found himself staring down at the sleeping frame that was his little sister. She was so tranquil. At peace. Sleeping. Alive and well. Who is coming after her? And why are you telling me this? What is your real name? And how do you know me? I don't have enough time to provide any explanations. But keep Luna safe and close by. I need to go. Wait. Issei whisper yelled, just answer me this. Who wants Luna? The same people who killed my best friend. The same ones that killed Karen. They are coming for her too. And with that, the magical circle disappeared and Issei was left standing there, staring at his sister. Karen's killers were after her as well. For what? How? And why? What could they possibly want from Luna? Albion, Issei said. I heard. He responded. Is this someone playing some kind of sick joke? Issei asked, practically begging for Albion to say he thought the same thing. What was the type of familiar Karen had? Issei's eyes grew wide and his heart rate sped up. It was a sparrow. This is no prank. Someone is coming after Luna, Issei. And Issei knew what Albion said was true. Issei. Your dinner is ready. When he didn't respond, his mother came up the stairs and looked into Luna's bedroom to find the boy looking down at his little sister. Issei, Keiko said, whispering. Huh? He asked, turning to look at his mother. That's so cute, she said. You are watching your sister sleep. Your food is ready. Come, sweetheart. Okay, just a sec, he said, walking to the door. He grabbed hold of the handle and just before closing the bedroom door, took a last look at Luna. Her eyes were opened and she looked at Issei with an expression beyond confusion. How much had she heard? End of the part 2. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.